If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. I have recently been drawn to re-examine how I thought of and contextualized of the religious practice of confession, comparing a modern understanding of self-reflection with the term's heavy and potentially misleading religious connotations. So often, confession is perceived as a transactional chore, a ritual of guilt recited merely to balance some metaphysical ledger or secure a place in a future paradise. Yet, I believe that if you strip away dogmatic baggage, you find an impulse behind confession which holds a timeless psychological value. It points not toward a plea for external absolution, but to an essential and often neglected mechanism for honest self-appraisal and the grounding of our self into a reciprocal reality. Your psyche, in pursuit of equilibrium, cannot listen to an egoic preference. It does not ask permission to its own nature, it just is. Psychic facts do not bend to conscious will, because it has never been a matter of wanting or wishing or trying. It is fundamentally a matter of seeing, which is neither an affirmative action or a process of willpower, but rather something passive. A resistance to seeing, which is to say truly acknowledging the objective state of a constitution, is of considerable importance. It is not of simple obstinacy, but from deeper, painful psychic dynamics. Firstly, there is pain of disillusionment. To let go of an illusion about myself or the world is to be confronted by something that you wish wasn't there, reminding you of aspects of character you rather disown in their misalignment to an ideal. The temptation, then, is towards an honesty to acknowledge commendable qualities while averting from those that are threatening in their misalignment. Yet, this partial honesty is a disservice. To choose comprehensive self-awareness is to commit in viewing all aspects, the loved and the loathed, under an impartial light. And what of that which is not brought with intent into the lights of conscience? It retreats into shadow, a compulsive influence upon both thought and action. There is also the fear that what is disowned, what has been relegated to shadow, is too overwhelming to be faced, let alone integrated into conscious personality. Furthermore, the ego identifies with persona, and once fused with an ego's sense of identity, any challenge to it feels annihilation of the self. The psychic discomfort is immense. Compounding this are the secondary gains of self-deception. By not seeing realities about yourself or your situation, ego avoids responsibility, sidesteps choices, or maintains a comfort, however illusory and unfulfilling it may be. It is fragile peace, bought at the cost of more integral psychic development. In work of self-confession, the soil turns, exposing roots of complexes and motivations to a light of consciousness, purging the mind of its deceptions. This is no transaction, as some misconceive it, nor plea for absolution from a judging outside deity. I must remind myself, it is rather a process of looking, simply looking, and in that looking, a declaration of agency of the psychic life. Confess in this manner, speak not to a projected external adjudicator, but to that center gnosis who already breathes truth. In that, a self-acceptance likened to forgiveness arises not as a reward of pity, but as a natural consequence of a new alignment to your psychic reality. Self-confession, then, can be viewed as a dismantling of self-deception. While the process of confession, in the psychological sense of intensive looking and radical self-honesty, is fundamentally an internal reckoning, with that unyielding mirror of self-reflection. You may find it can be made sharper in the presence of a trusted other, be it an understanding friend, a confessor in a traditional sense, or indeed the psychoanalyst. The dynamic of relationship can play a subtle yet significant role. When we confess to another, that is, when we articulate and give voice to what is being withheld or stuck, an important psychic event occurs. Speaking and bearing witness to our own integrity before another externalizes the previously hidden content. It brings what was merely internal, tormenting, disowned psychic fact into the shared space of a consensus reality. In so doing, the repressed material is grounded. It is drawn from the purely subjective mind and given a measure of objective existence in the interpersonal world. This does not negate the internal nature of the ultimate integration, but in my experience I've seen it can facilitate it, providing a focal point for confronting what might otherwise remain too diffuse or too dangerous to grasp alone. The other in this context may function as a temporary auxiliary ego, shining back not only the content, but also the possibility of its acceptance. Forgiveness, in this context, is no gift bestowed by remote judging entities. It is the natural outcome of acknowledgement of what is. It is a condition of peace that emerges when you stop hiding from yourself and stand before what is real. How can we see what we refuse to acknowledge through such honest self-appraisal? How can we bring healing to what we will not consciously touch? Shadow will never be defeated by repression, nor does it need to be. It is not an intrinsic enemy, but a dismembered refraction of the whole. We are here not to engage in futile battles to destroy demons, but to remember them, to hold them as parts of a greater, comprehensive psychic integration. What older linguistics termed sin is not what you associate with the word today. The original meaning was intended as a measure of misalignment. Indeed, the historical roots of this concept, in the Greek hamartia and the Hebrew chata, assign the term sin the primary meaning of to miss the mark, as an archer might fail to strike an intended target. This original sense points not so much to an inherent corruption, as we attribute it now, but to a deviation from an intended path or a failure to achieve your true aim, falling short of a standard, whether that be an inner ideal or a perceived divine law. It is the discrepancy between who we demonstrably are, in action and attitude, and the principles we hold as foundational, a dissonance between conduct and ideals. To bridge this gap is to restore psychic balance, to realign with the factual state. This begins with confession, another term which has had its meaning twisted in misunderstanding. It's not as a ritual of guilt or a balancing of a moral ledger, but a liberating tool. When we confess, that is, to accept something which is, into reality, your true position in relation to this internal gap is revealed. And when that acceptance is imparted from ourself to ourself, the gap can indeed narrow in forgiveness. In many traditions, across varied cultures without contact to one another, rituals of confession and reconciliation feature prominently. This is not because external divinities demanded it of them, but because an internal human regulating principle is called to it. The fundamental impetus of the psyche is towards correspondence with reality, that is, truth, fact. It strives to bring what is hidden into the light, to make the unconscious conscious, and continue grounding itself into this reality. This is the process of forging what is a complete personality, articulating a personal myth through which you become who you are truly meant to be. This drive towards articulating a personal ethos is not a psychological imperative for individual wellness. It touches upon the most critical question of existence, the search for meaning. As Carl Jung posited, and as writer and philosopher Bernardo Kastrup emphasizes in his work, Decoding Jung's Metaphysics, a lack of meaning is not a philosophical abstraction, but a widespread illness. Meaninglessness inhibits fullness of life, Jung writes, concluding that meaning makes a great many things endurable, perhaps everything. The difficult work of self-reflection, therefore, is not just about achieving psychic balance, but about fulfilling a fundamental human need that wards off the deepest existential sickness. This quest for meaning takes on a more cosmic significance when we consider the role of human consciousness in the universe. Kastrup, interpreting Jung, presents an idea that resonated with me. The universe, or God, or whatever you want to call, the great big divine thing that we feel but don't understand, possesses a kind of omniscience, but lacks the capacity for self-reflection. It is an all-encompassing, but non-self-aware psychic totality. God cannot consult his total knowledge, Kastrup explains, because this divine ground does not come up against an insuperable obstacle that would force him to hesitate and hence make him reflect on himself. It is humanity, through our finite and reflective consciousness, that serves as the mirror in which the universe can finally see itself. Our purpose, then, is to be the container for this divine self-awareness. Here, the act of confession, as we have defined it, a radical and honest reflection on the contents of the psyche, is elevated to an even higher divine striving. Not something we must do to be accepted by God, but something God is called to do through us. It is the most potent expression of that reflection in consciousness, which Jung believed gives existence its reality. When you practice self-appraisal, stripping deceptions of the day-to-day consciousness, you are doing more than healing your own psychic splits. As Jung noted, the relationship is reciprocal. Just as the unconscious affects us, so the increase in our consciousness affects the unconscious. In this reflective form, you are participating in a process that is beyond human, beyond ego, offering your awareness to make the world, everyone in it, and its creator, more conscious. By undertaking this work, you are not only building your own personality, but are also helping to bring meaning into being for the cosmos itself. Your life, far from being an isolated series of events, becomes grounded in what Kastrup calls something infinite and eternal, serving a truly divine purpose. The healing that comes from confession, or honest reflection, if you prefer that term, is thus twofold. It restores your personal alignment with psychic reality, and it fulfills your ultimate function within a universe that lives to know itself. In this, the sense of purpose and meaning that was lost in the modern world is profoundly restored. Observe how your psychic orientation affects perception. When I look into the world burdened by doubt, I find nothing but evidence to support it. Every shadow lengthens, every stumble appears to confirm the path's insecurity. I am, in effect, affirming the truth of the doubt within me, and so the phenomenal world reflects this back, and it's all I see, because it's all I look at. Conversely, when I operate from a conviction rooted in pure self-knowledge, which we can name as faith, I see the avenues for constructive action, for victory over psychic inertia. The word we speak to ourselves, the internal monologue, and our deeply held beliefs are the closest and most accurate available translation between the non-material, such as one's thoughts, feelings, and beliefs, and what becomes physically realized or experienced, or as I say, grounded. Therefore, By identifying this internal word and tracing its origins, we approach the foundational psychic truth with which it may be in contention and with which it may be obfuscating. Absolute safety and absolute peace can exist only in a congruent relationship with that which is true. When that truth is distorted or withheld from consciousness, even slightly, chaos sows in the internal world, and our capability of self-reflection remains clouded, projecting repressed chaos further outward since it is unseen inward, ultimately painting our world with its own color, where little makes sense and everything is in question, and most of all, blocking us from our divine meaning. When we stand in the light of acknowledged fact, clarity finds us. We perceive balance. We know ourselves in a more complete measure, and shadow's filter is removed for something beyond us to breathe through. We are left then with the essential truth we began with, now imbued with its ultimate meaning. The choice is not between comfort and discomfort, but between meaning and meaninglessness, between annihilation and a life of purpose. The work is to turn inward, to see without judgment, and to speak what is true, if only to yourself. For in self-reflection, you are the very creation of reality. You bring forth what is within you, and what you bring forth will not only save you, it is the service for which you were made.